Let me show you how I made these. So this project starts out by making 2 pots on the wheel, and you know, you shoot these videos and you realize later just how long they are, so I won't make you watch a long throwing video. I don't think they're terribly exciting. So a little quick fast forward here, and then we'll get to how we're going to add the edge. We're going to make 2 pots. We're going to try 2 different techniques for adding an extruded edge to the pot. One, we'll put a groove on the edge of the piece, and that we'll try to pinch closed later, and the second, we'll go around and poke holes with a wooden handle and see if that works better. This is what the inside looks like. I have more of a nice curve inside now that I use the rib. I don't need to put much heat in. My concern is that this is going to be a fairly heavy wall that we're going to groove and add an extension to. So this shoulder, as I come in with the rib now and I open it and flare the bowl out, is going to take quite a bit of force, and I don't want it to sag. And I'm also leaving it thick because I plan on trimming it. One thing I'm keeping an eye on is I want this to get wide, and I want the curve to be pleasant, but I do want to keep just a little bit of this in kind of a up and down horizontal, rather vertical orientation, because I want to put a groove in it and install some extrusions. So I don't think I want to be installing that extrusion bit at an angle. Maybe once it's installed I'll be able to stretch it, but I don't mind the little extra bits, but I do need to go a little deeper than that. And then once the pieces are put in, we'll fold these back up. Well, I'm going to call that good for now. Now I'm going to go mess around with extruding a lattice to install on the edge. So what I do is I get each piece individually. I have a little pencil mark that you're probably not going to see on the camera, but that's my little mark as to roughly where to tear it off. And keep a little bisqueware bottle handy just to help me form a bit of a curve. And then I lay them out, roughly following the curve marks that I lasered down. I'll let those stiffen up, and then we'll start applying them to the pot. So here's what we have so far. I've gone ahead and divided this with the back of a paintbrush, making little divots in quarters and eighths, and now once I have the whole pattern, I'm going around and installing these. And you just have to make a decision how many holes you're going to skip. In this case, each time I put one of these in, I'm skipping 2 holes. So I'm going to keep doing this all the way around and weave them back in here at the end. Then I'm going to try to throw it, wet my fingers and throw it, and close that in and pinch these in place. So let me get the rest of these in and I'll come back to you. Okay, so I have them all stuck in the edge, and now I'm going to try to wet my fingers and wet the surfaces of the rim here and see if I can throw the groove closed. Now, I'm not sure you can see, maybe you can. All of the bumps are transferring to the inside, which is interesting. It wasn't necessarily my intention, but I want to flip directions here and make sure that I really pinch it well in both directions. And I'm not sure it's necessary that they are stuck to each other, because glaze will give them a final glue. But it seems like this is the opportunity, this is the time to see if you can even it out a little bit. Now I want to see if I can expand this rib. Not sure I'm crazy about how these are going a little wonky though. I like them all the same. I'd rather have it flare out versus close in, so I'll just lightly motivate these to the outside. Well, I'm going to call it at that. I think that looks pretty good. So on the second piece, I want to try a different way of attaching the extrusions, and I'm not going to put a groove. Instead, I'm going to use a paintbrush handle, and I'm going to lay out some holes. I'm going to come back and enlarge them, and we're going to use those holes along with the extrusions, and we'll see which one works best in the end. Okay, let's see how these things actually install. I don't want to let them get too dry, so it's going to be a balancing act here. If I let them get too dry, there's just no chance that they'll bond to each other. I think now that I have it stabilized, I'm going to go quickly extrude another piece and weave it through so that I can expand against that and it'll still stay together, because I want to get, these are drying out. I should have been misting them. I can't find my spray bottle, but they're drying out and I'm going to lose any more opportunity to get them to stick together, so I gotta act quick. This honestly seems like an impossible task. I am not sure this is a good idea, but I'm gonna try. So I just want to see if I can expand it and give it a little better shape. So I'm not sure that this will take my hand rubbing against it. I'm tempted to get it wet with a sponge and stretch it, but I'm thinking that maybe just very light persuasion might be a wiser course. But I'd like to see it flare out just a little bit. Not really sharp, but this whole piece is kind of soft, so I don't want anything too crisp. And all these little finger pinch marks, I'll sponge that off once it's all stiffened up. So once you put the rim on, it's kind of tricky to flip it over on a trimming wheel to get to the bottom. And in this case, I put it on a chuck, a ceramic chuck, that is held down with some clay to the wheel head, and then the bowl sits on top of that. It worked pretty good. Since I was already here, I thought it would be nice to add a little chatter to the bottom of the bowl and a little dividing line to just give the pot a little more interest. So here they are out of bisque. No cracks or problems. I wasn't sure if we were going to have any of these pop off, but looks good for our first attempt. You know, it's a little sloppy, but I'm happy with it. And I didn't get in and close this groove as much as I thought I would. So I want to kind of double dip when I glaze this. I'm going to dip this probably in 2 layers. Maybe, yeah, 2 layers probably. But hopefully to get enough so it'll run down and fill a majority of that inner groove right there. So, and as well with this one, turned out good. It's kind of funny when you let her, I don't know if you can hear that, but it does not ring because these are loose and they kind of vibrate against each other. This kind of had a solid sound to it, but really hopeful that we're going to be able to tie all these together with glaze and should have something I think is pretty interesting. So here's what we have. Got some flowers from the garden. I think it turned out pretty good. The edges are on this where, you know, we put the holes here. We didn't have the groove like this one. The edges are nice and smooth. A little bit of webbing from the glaze. I wasn't sure how much of these holes will close up, but overall it's worked really good for a first try. One thing I noticed on this one, and much more on this one, is it was almost as if this was over bisqued. I'm not sure if it matured a little bit more than the rest of the pot, but it kind of refused to have glaze stick to it as if you had a fully fired piece. You know, if you've ever done that and tried to glaze it, it just doesn't suck into the pot in the same way. And so there are areas that have kind of pulled a little bit, but overall I think the effect is really good. Now this one, number one, the glaze was very disappointing. There are spots where it kind of worked. It should be a flecky gold, but it crawled in a lot of spots, and I don't know. These feel too thin to me. They are glazed together, but they feel really thin and fragile. They look like pretzels. I don't know. I think this is too thin. So I'm going to put it to use. We'll find out how durable those skinny ones are. But from now on, I think I'm going to be making them at least this big, if not make a die set to make them bigger. So that's that. Hope you enjoyed.